Hello, everyone. This time I will be discussing about the Cavite Mutiny. So, Cavite Mutiny is only one of the significant events happened in 1872. So, there are two important things or events or turnout of events happened in 1872. The first happened in January 20, which was the Cavite Mutiny, and that led to the execution or the martyrdom of the three leaders of the native clergy known as the Gomborza: Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora. They are not the Majuha. They are the Gomborza. Okay, so we will talk about the things that has happened on the Cavite Mutiny. The reason why we're going to talk about this is that there are many accounts. In fact, there are four accounts of the history of the Cavite Mutiny. One of that is the report of the Governor General Rafael Izquierdo. Second, the account of Edmond Plachot. Third, by our scholar and historian Pardo de Tavera. And then the fourth one was the account of by a Spanish historian. His name is Jose Montero y Vidal. This event in 1872, I will be giving you only at least the two accounts of this story. Although there are four, I will not be including the account of Edmond as well as of Izquierdo. The famous two phases of the Cavite Mutiny is the account of Vidal and Tavera. We are going to analyze and to evaluate the two stories, and also we have to unravel the truth and the basic facts uh, that has happened or had happened during this time. One of the account is by written by Jose Montero y Vidal. One siding or um, um, his inclinations is more on the Spanish perspective. According to him, it is an attempt. The event is an attempt of the Indios. When we talk about Indios, this is referred to the Filipinos. We were called Indios as because if you are going to think about it, that is labeled to the race with to inferior races, just like the Indians, no, the Indios, like that, to overthrow the Spanish government in the Philippines. Now, that is according to Vidal. The Cavite Mutiny was an act of the Filipinos to overthrow the Spanish government. The event was used by the newly installed then Governor General Rafael Izquierdo, who was the successor of Carlos Maria de la Torre. If you can remember, the former Governor General was with liberal leanings. Kumbaga, ang iyang pamamahala din sa Pilipinas is much more liberated. He gave freedom to the Filipinos. The way he ruled is not that the same with the iron-fisted rule. No? Medyo nakakahinga, kumbaga, ang mga Filipinos by the time of Carlos Maria de la Torre. And suddenly, he was replaced by the new Governor General, Rafael Izquierdo, which was known of his iron-fisted rule, draconian rule, isog, stricto. No? Kumbaga, once you already tasted freedom, and then suddenly you are being restricted, you might resist. you will not accept it right away, no? Because that is a sudden change, and we are not ready. We are not always ready to embrace change. So Governor General used the event to implicate the native clergy. Why was the native clergy got implicated, especially the Gomborza? Because they were the prominent figures of the secularization movement in the Philippines. The secularization movement in the Philippines, what is this all about? The secularization controversy. We have to know that there are two categories or two types of priests during this time. You know? Although it is still categorized up to this day, but let us just discuss it in the context of 1872. The regulars and the seculars. When we talk about regulars, they are the friars. They are the priests belonging to religious congregations or orders like Franciscans, Dominicans, Jesuits, Augustinians, and others. The seculars are the diocesan priests, and they are the native clergies. No? They are the Gomez, Zamora, and Burgos. So that is the two types of priest. So since this secularization movement happened when no when the bishops, no, because primarily before this happened, parishes were handled by the regulars, no. So when the bishops insisted to visit the parishes run by the regulars, kumbaga adtuon bisitahon sa mga obispo ang ilahang mga parokya, no? Like here in Dumaguete, we have our Mother of Perpetual Help near here at the back of Norso. We have the Immaculate Conception besides Lee Plaza, that is a parish as well, and then the Cathedral, that is a parish as well. But to be exact, the Immaculate Conception Parish and the Our Mother of Perpetual Help Parish is won by the regulars. Kung ibutang nato sa context sa 1872, they are the religious priests or friars. So when the bishops insisted to visit the parishes, they refused, insisting they were not under the bishop's jurisdiction. Because that is somehow true, no? That is somehow true before, no? Because if you are a religious, ang imuhang direct superior is under the congregation. Kung Dominican ka, then dito ka mo answer sa Dominican officials. They have the I guess they call that the master provincial, and for the Franciscans, minister provincial. That is the highest in a province, no, in a province of the religious congregation. That the name or the title of the head varies from different congregations. So they insisted, but today that is no longer the same, because if you're even though if you're a religious but you belong to a certain diocese, you still have to participate or to respect the authority of the bishop in that certain diocese. So they insisted dili me under sa authority or jurisdiction sa obispo, why would we allow the bishop to visit our parish? So because of that attempt, they threatened to abandon their parishes if the bishops would do so. So kung mapadayon magbisita o inspection ng mga obispo, ilang biyaan daw ang mga parokya, ilang gihadlok ang mga obispo. But in 1774, the Archbishop Basilio Justa, no, uphold the diocese authority over the parishes, so the regulars abandoned their posts. Ilang gibiyaan ang ilahang mga parokya. Then what will happen? Bakante ang mga parokya, walay pari ang mga parokya. So what was the alternative? Unsa may pwedeng buhaton sa obispo? Then the bishop assigned secular priests to those parishes. So dito ni start ang tanan. Ilahang sala ni kumbaga dai sipyat ang mga regulars this time because of that move of the bishop. They abandoned their parishes. Who will manage the parish? Wala may lain kundi pare. So the native clergy replaced. So sila mo'y ni puli sa ilang post. And on November 9, 1774, a royal decree was issued for the secularization of all parishes. This was with the approval, or kumbaga it was an order or a mandate from the royal decree or the government in Madrid, the central government or the central Spanish government. So it was the move or it was an order of the Spanish government, the central Spanish government to secularize. Kumbaga, kung sa pattern man god, once ma-establish ng usa ka parokya sa usa ka religious nga pari, pwede na nila i-turn over sa diocesan like this. But tungod sa kumbaga inclination to power, they would like to stay. So because of that order, so nipadayon ang pag-secularize sa mga parokya, no? And then however, many of the regulars resented, no? They go against the move because they consider the Filipinos unfit for the priesthood in the basis of race. There is a discrimination here. Because of that discrimination, they don't want the seculars to manage the parishes. So how did the mutiny happen? So moto siya gi-implicate moto sa reason clash nga gi-implicate ni sa mga friars at the same time ni Governor General Izquierdo ang native clergy because of that secularization movement. But in fact, it has no connection. So we will know that later. So let's proceed. How did the mutiny happen? Prior to this is the account according to Vidal. Prior to the incident, Montero and Izquierdo, no? Montero and Izquierdo abolished the privileges. Kani si Montero mo ni siyang historian, no? Nga nagsulat ni ining account. Prior the mutiny, they abolished the privileges of the members of the Cavite military men, no? Comprises the mestizos and the native military men. So they abolished the non-payment of tax and exemption from forced labor. So those are the basic privileges they enjoy. They were enjoying that during the time of Maria de la Torre. But when Esquerdo took office, they abolished the privileges. So they don't want, as an act of refusal or um, going against the abolition of the privileges. So they mutinied, no? So the Indios, according to Vidal or Montero, according to him, the mutiny was a revolution. No? The Indios revolted, as they call it revolution, citing causes that they wanted to overthrow the Spanish government. So that was the story of Vidal. Nga the act of insurrection, kaning Cavite Mutiny, the purpose of that is to overthrow the Spanish government. No? Their propaganda accused the native clergy of conspiring and supporting the rebels and enemies of Spain. So that is a conspiracy done by the friars, the Spanish friars. They implicate the clergy and the native clergy. Tungod lagi sa secularization movement. Nga if mapulihan na sa mga native clergies ang mga parishes, kumbaga ma-remove na ang mga religious din sa Pilipinas. So they as a defiance, kumbaga they wanted to change that order, no? They wanted to change that order. Well, you will know that later. They implicate the native clergy to the mutiny. So that is a widespread conspiracy. Gigaman-gaman og istorya kumbaga. Um, Izquierdo also added that they enticed others by giving them assurances such as God is with them. Kumbaga, ang mga native clergy kuno mo ni-encourage sa mga Indios, sa mga Filipinos to participate on the revolution, no? Nga kung mo-join sila sa revolution, they assure them that God is with them and that they will receive rewards such as employment, wealth, and ranks in the army. So they labeled the incident as a premeditated or prepared earlier, and that it was a big conspiracy with the educated leaders, mestizos, and many more surrounding Cavite and in the entire archipelago. So mao na ang ilahang gihimo nga istorya on this particular event. Kumbaga, gi-implicate na halos nila tanan na kining move daw kuno sa Cavite Mutiny, it was prepared, premeditated, gipreparahan kumbaga, no? But we will know later the version of Tavera on this. What is the version of Tavera? But this one is the version of Vidal, no? The leader of the mutiny was Sergeant Fernando Lamadrid, a mestizo. Mayroon tayong mestizo, half Spanish, half Filipino, or half Chinese, half Filipino. No? Sergeant Lamadrid mistook the fireworks as the sign for the attack, targeting Spanish officers at sight, I'm sorry, and seized the arsenal, the Cavite arsenal. So ilang giatake ang because this time also was the feast of sa Birhen sa Loreto on the other town. Na pag because there was a feast, doon ay palupok og fireworks. Um, Somebody, I guess this is has transpired, no? Since daghan man silang napiktuhan, Ala Madrid was expecting reinforcement from other groups of military nga naapektuhan sa maumong nga abolition of privileges, but that did not happen. So when the news reached Escuerdo, although kuha na nila ilang took possession ng Cavite Arsenal by the mutineers, it did not take long, no? Wala sila midugay dito because when Escuerdo heard the news, he right away ordered reinforcement of the Spanish forces, and the revolt was easily subdued. So mo na iyang kuan, mo na iyang version. Now we do not know for sure where did they take or get the information of the conspiracy that many has cooperated on the propaganda, no? The thing here is that the Spanish government, the central Spanish government in Madrid failed to investigate, no, to know what has really happened. Was there really a conspiracy of overthrowing the Spanish government, or was it only a mere mutiny? So, for Montero's or Vidal's account, it was a big conspiracy to overthrow the Spanish government, and it was started through the mutiny, and then they subdued it right away, and then they filed a report to the central Spanish government. While on the version of Dr. Trinidad Hermenegildo Pardo de Tavera, a Filipino scholar and historian, according to him, the mutiny was only a response to injustice. So for him, the incident was a mere mutiny by the native Filipino soldiers and laborers of the Cavite Arsenal who turned out to be dissatisfied with the abolition of their privileges. Ikaw ba naman na pabayaron kalit og buwis, although you are exempted for that because you are rendering service to the Spanish government. And then aside from rendering service to the Spanish government, you will not be exempted from participating to forced labor, no? Katong polo e serbisyo. So about 200 men comprised of soldiers, laborers of the arsenal, and residents of the Cavite, headed by Sergeant Lamadrid, a mestizo, rose in arms, and assassinated the commanding officer and Spanish officers inside. And they were expecting support from the bulk of the army because as I said earlier, daghan sila ang napiktuhan. But did not happen. No? According to Tavera, during this time, as I said earlier, due to the mandate of the secularization in Spain, I mean in the Philippines, the friars were in fear. No? Nahadlok sila nga their participation in the civil government and managing the education system in the Philippines will be only a thing in the past. Now, they don't want that to happen. So it prompted them to use the Cavite Mutiny, no, by presenting it as a vast conspiracy. This is according to Tavera, a vast conspiracy organized throughout the archipelago, the entire Philippine nation, with the object of destroying the Spanish sovereignty to the Spanish government in Spain, no? Gigaman gyud nila og according to Tavera og report, no? Na this has happened. Kumbaga mo ni nahitabo. And it was not only a minor, it's not only a mere mutiny, but a revolution. Kumbaga. Sadly, the Madrid government or the central Spanish government easily believed it without any attempts to investigate the real facts or extent of the alleged revolution. Without any further ado, the central Spanish government believed it. Gituhan dayon right away. So that's why they remained here in the Philippines, the friars. No? In fairness, dili punta ng friars hangol o gahom no during this time. This led to life imprisonment sentence to the men who participated in the mutiny, while the implicated heads of the native clergy were executed by garrote. Before I'll proceed, let me differentiate to you what is mutiny and a revolution. Revolution is the purpose of revolution is to destabilize or to overthrow or to destroy the Spanish government. That is revolution, while mere mutiny is an insurrection, no? A violent response against an authority, no? Tungod sa injustice nga nahitabo pag-abolish sa ilang privileges. So, katong mga military men nga na involved sa mutiny, na priso sila, life imprisonment sentence, while ang mga head sa native clergy known as Gomez, Zamora, and Burgos were executed by garrote. So this certain events leads to the awakening of nationalism and eventually to the breakout of Philippine Revolution of 1896. Medyo layo-layo pa man, 1872 ni siya din nahitabo ang 1896. Pero from the start of the from that event, no, tungod sa panghitabo, nakaamat-amat naghuna-huna ang mga tao, no, the Filipino people by this time because of the injustice. Why should the Gomborza be executed? No, for sure, what they think is that they were not involved on the mutiny. They were only implicated. Gi-appeal lang sila tungod sa hatred sa mga friars to the native clergy who are you know prominent figures of the secularization of the parishes in the Philippines. The facts, we have to unveil the truth, no? Based on the four accounts. Here I have only said or discussed to you the two accounts, the two phases according to Tavera and according to Vidal. Now, Vidal and Montero is only one person. Okay, so these are the facts according to the four accounts. There was a dissatisfaction among the workers of the arsenal, as well as the members of the native army, after their privileges were drawn back by General Izquierdo. No, sakto si Tavera at this point, because of that dissatisfaction, they rose in arms. Second, General Izquierdo introduced rigid and strict policies that made the Filipinos move and turn away from the Spanish government out of disgust. Third, the central government failed to conduct an investigation on what truly transpired but relied on reports of Izquierdo and the friars and the opinions of the public. Wala nay thorough investigation na hitabo. Gituuhan lang diretso ang report. The happy days of the friars were already numbered in 1872, no? When the central government in Spain decided to deprive them of the power to intervene in government affairs as well as in the direction and management of schools, prompting them to commit frantic moves to extend their stay in power. And then fifth, the Filipino clergy members actively participated in the secularization movement in order to allow Filipino priests to take hold of the parishes which they deserve, in the country, making them prey to the rage of the friars. Sila mo'y nahimong napungtan, no? Kumbaga mo'y na object sa kapungot sa mga praile. And then Filipinos during the time were active participants and responded to what they deemed as injustices. So they didn't start nga naguna-una ng mga Pilipino. And then lastly, the execution of the Gomborza was a blunder on the part of the Spanish government, for the action severed the ill feelings of the Filipinos, and the event inspired Filipino patriots to call for reforms and eventually independence. No? Usa sa kuan ini, usa sa direktang kuan ani nakaamgo isang the brother of Rizal, no? Who was a student of one of the native clergy nga gi-execute, and even Rizal, no? So although it took long, no, it took long, medyo nadugay-dugay pa until 1896, but there was already a growing feeling of a growing nationalism and patriotism in the hearts of the Filipino people. Andito nagkadaghan na ang mga Filipino patriots. So that's all for this discussion. No, that is that was the two phases according to Tavera and according to Vidal. Although there are four, at least you have known two, and you will no longer be. I mean, you will have already knowledge what has really happened and why the Gomborza got implicated to the Cavite Mutiny. Murag paminaw ni mo layo ra man kaayo nga namang na-appeal man ni sila. That is because of the conspiracy presented by the friars and the Spanish government in the Philippines to the central Spanish government in Madrid. So tungod ana nga conspiracy, dako kay konspirasiya, na-appeal sila sa mga conspiracy. Where in real, where in the ground sa wala gyud sila contribution sa mao nga Cavite Mutiny. All right. So, see you on the next discussion. God bless.